Pope Benedict has used his first address to World Youth Day pilgrims to warn of the dangers of sex and violence in the media.
Good evening. Good evening and welcome to Q&A. Facing our questions tonight, journalist, author and former media watcher David Marr. Australia's longest-serving foreign minister, now the retiring but not shy member for Mayo, Alexander Downer, a woman whose career is only just starting, Young Labor's Rose Jackson, the Australian's columnist and commentator on family and social issues, Angela Shanahan, and the Minister for Finance and Deregulation, Lindsay Tanner. Please welcome them.
Well, for heaven's sake, experience and expertise shouldn't be requirements before we open our mouths, in public or in private life.
It certainly hasn't been the case for any of us.
No, absolutely. Free of all of those impediments, we can speak more freely about these issues. My view is that church leaders are as free to take part in public debate as in, leaders of industry, as any other citizens. They're not barred in any way. But we are not barred either from looking at what they say and realising where it comes from. And the challenge for us when religious leaders start pontificating, if I can use that word this week in this town, about issues like population or global warming or, morality of one kind or another, it's important for us to identify what's doctrinal about it, what's logical about it, what's kind, what's good about it. But no, they're absolutely free to speak. That's our society.
Alexander Downer.
Well, I think it's a very good question. I certainly agree with David Marr. They're obviously free to say what they like. There's no question of that. What they've got to do, though, is think about the consequences for not so much themselves, but for the institution of the church or the institutions of the churches in terms of what they've said and the arguments they've put. One of the observations I would make about a number of church leaders is that they're perfectly entitled to say what they like about political issues, perfectly entitled to. But they seem very certain about a lot of political issues and very uncertain about a lot of questions of faith. And it's one of the reasons, I think, that the public are not as enthusiastic about the leadership of churches as they once were.
Can I kind of interrupt? Which political issues are you referring to? Because it's obviously the burning question in that statement.
There are a whole series of issues over the years that they've been very vocal on. They seem very confident in their views about how, issues like the war on terrorism and climate change and the like should be addressed. Refugees, whatever it is.
Refugees, for instance.
Word choices, another one.
All right. Well, if the operation of the labour market, we'll take that as an example. The operation of the labour market is something that church leaders feel very confident about. They feel they understand that very well. That's fair enough. But they squabble with each other. They seem very uncertain about some of the fundamental issues of religion, some of the fundamental issues of faith. I mean, concepts like the Immaculate Conception, the role of Jesus being the Son of God, the whole sort of philosophy and theology of religion, they debate and are uncertain about, but they seem very certain about a lot of political issues. Now, that's fine, but it's one of the reasons why some of the churches have lost the support that they once had, including, by the way, from me.
Well, I'd probably take it even one step further than saying that religious leaders should be allowed or free to speak on things. I'm one of those people that thinks that everyone should be encouraged to speak on things. We should actually seek out the opinions of everyone, religious leaders, industry leaders, union leaders, media commentators, young people. I'm of the opinion that there's probably not enough contribution from a wide variety of people to the political debate in this country, and religious leaders do get their views heard a lot. But I think that if we want to say to people who maybe don't get their views heard a lot, you've got a role, you've got a voice, we want to hear what you have to say, we shouldn't be pushing towards shutting anyone down. I don't necessarily agree with what the religious leaders have to say on a whole range of issues, but I think that it's really important that everyone is not just free to have their say, but encouraged to have their say. I think that's part of our democracy.
Teresa, there's a difference between a personal view and teaching of the church. And when a cleric, such as Cardinal Pell, makes a point about something which is fundamental to the teaching of the church, he isn't talking just personally. He is talking as a teacher. And that's a very important distinction. It's the same reason why a judge cannot just give a personal view, but he can make a point about the law. And in some ways, we actually have the same thing going on there.
I actually value the public contribution that religious leaders make. Like Rose, I'd like to see them speak out more. When you think about who else gets a lot of coverage in the public space, and the fact that a lot of it is either vacuous celebrities or purveyors of rampant self-interest, or, dare I say it, politicians, is it such
all of the above?
Or all of the above, yes. All wrapped up into one person. I think it's actually a good thing.
I think we know who you mean.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
I think
we do.
No, I suspect you and I have got different versions of who that'd be, Alex. But I think it's a good thing that we have people who are attempting to analyse issues and put forward a view in the public domain based on what they see as a sense of right and wrong that is not just an individual kind of opinion or something like that, but it's based on an analysis of a long-standing theology that says, here is how we see these issues. And in issues like stem cell research, for example, where I've been, along with other parliamentarians, actively involved in debating the issue, I ended up on the other side from people like Cardinal Pell, but not without a lot of thought and a lot of consideration. I actually thought it was a good thing that people like him were in the public debate, putting a point of view that wasn't just about trying to persuade somebody to buy his product. That it was actually about putting forward a view about an issue that was very complex, very challenging, where there are lots of difficult human issues involved.
Hi. A common misconception is that religion and reason are incompatible. In light of Kevin Rudd's comments this week, do you think this myth is finally being dispelled?
OK, this obviously comes from Kevin Rudd's welcome speech to the World Youth Day pilgrims, in which he said religion and reason are not incompatible, and then repeated it. David Marr.
Completely incompatible when it comes down to it in the end. Not all elements of religion, of course, because there are fundamentally good elements of religion. But religions are filled with illogicalities that are impossible to square with any kind of rational belief. I mean, the Roman Catholic Church has imported to this country for this week's celebrations a dead body to be venerated in churches around Sydney. Now, what is that about? What is the logic of that? The Roman Catholic Church and a number of other churches are locked in a refusal to understand the scientific basis of human sexuality. A number of teachings which cause immense distress and sometimes harm to people all around the world. It's a struggle with science which we know from experience will always be won by science. The Church has stood out for a long time against a number of scientific truths, but they always cave in. A lot of pain along the way, they always cave in. Now, faith and belief can be wonderful things, but up against logic, they have to give way to logic. Otherwise, they devolve into systems which are usually cruel, hampering, and claustrophobic. In the end, it's logic that is what takes us forward.
Okay.